Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today is a very special episode of Splat from the Past. I will be interviewing the producer of one of the greatest Christmas-themed slasher movies of all time and most controversial, Silent Night, Deadly Night, Scott Schneid. I'm having him on the show today to talk about the process behind the entire movie and talk about some other stuff he did too. He wrote an episode of Hardcastle and McCormick. He wrote an episode of the Friday the 13th series. He also wrote the movie Phantom of the Mall, Eric's Revenge, and also I think he did some other stuff too. But I want to talk mostly about that stuff, and I can't wait. It's very difficult to get in touch with anybody associated with that movie, but I found him, and I found Paul Mulder, who will be on this week as well. And as you all know, I've interviewed Linnea Quigley in the past, so like 3 people from that movie is easy to get in touch with, but not everybody. So here is my interview with Scott Schneid.
Scott Schneid.
Hey, Scott, it's Tom.
Hey, Tom. How are you doing?
I am great. How are you?
Good. Are you actually calling from Pennsylvania somewhere?
No, I'm calling from Redding, California.
Oh, I thought it said Redding, Pennsylvania. Okay.
That's
it's too early in the morning for me.
That's happened before. Some people think I'm calling from another place.
Another planet, huh?
Yeah, I don't get it.
That's funny, man. So Redding, where's Redding? No, up north? I know I've heard of it. Where it is.
It's up north. It's 2 hours away from Sacramento.
Okay.
3 hours away from San Francisco. Yeah.
Is it due north or northeast or inland? From the coast, a couple hours.
Yeah, it's about 6 or 7 hours from LA.
Oh, okay, all right. Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's a long drive. Okay, how are you?
I am great. How are you?
Good, man. What can I talk to you about today? Just tell me. Fire away. I was the guy that initiated the whole thing.
Okay. Well, first off, it's such a great honor. Thank you so much for taking the time.
You're welcome.
And going back in time, I know that first you were at William Morris training to be an agent, but way before that, though, did you gravitate toward film early on?
I was a jock as a kid growing up. I grew up in a working class family in Brooklyn.
Right.
My dad owned a luncheonette under a subway train. They co-owned a luncheonette candy store under a subway train. So
Mm-hmm.
one of the cool things, so my loves as a kid growing up were sports
Mm-hmm.
and comic books. I really loved Marvel in particular more than DC. I liked the illustrations better of the Marvel comics when I was a kid. But I was a big Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Captain America, Iron Man fan, and I loved stuff like Star Trek. I mean, I grew up, the initial Star Trek show. I'm showing my age, of course, but Star Trek with Shatner and Nimoy. I literally knew every line of dialogue. I knew the names of the episodes. I probably said every episode 10 to 20 times as a kid. And so those things caught my imagination, along with when I became, teen years, 14, 15, I started reading like Ray Bradbury books and, Edgar Allan Poe stuff. And, I liked horror, sci-fi. I loved Forbidden Planet and versus the Flying Saucers.
Yeah.
I just all that stuff. I loved horror and scary stuff. Not necessarily violent stuff, but creepy, scary stuff. The original Thing, of course,
Mm-hmm.
with James Arness, the walking vegetable in the Arctic. And, so that was as a kid. And like I said, the other thing was sports. I love sports and sports, particularly I played high school football and college football for 4 years. And so sports opened up some doors for me, to schools that I never would have gotten in had I not been a Jewish linebacker.
Yeah, I was a linebacker in high school.
Yeah. Well, I made it to Division I AA. I played Ivy League football. I didn't play. I wasn't good enough to play Notre Dame or Ohio State or something, but I was good enough to play. Ivy League level, Colgate, Bucknell, Lehigh, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Wow. And so you were basically a jock with nerdy interests.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, and I was a jock who didn't hang out with jocks. Like my roommates in college, two of them became doctors. They weren't sports guys. Another guy became an attorney. So I didn't live in the jock. There were no frats where I went to college, but the dorm that I lived in wasn't a jock dorm. You know what I mean? It was like mix of cross section of folks, and I loved going to the movies. But see, I grew up in a working class world where I didn't think it was possible to be in the film business.
Yeah.
It wasn't part of my universe. I love movies and I love watching television, but I didn't know that people actually did that, for a living.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know anybody that did that. Where I grew up in Midwood and Flatbush in Brooklyn. I mean, nobody did that.
Yeah.
So it just wasn't. As growing up, I had no thoughts or ideas that I would go in the film or television business someday. And other than what I discovered, which was so interesting, talk about genetics, I discovered in my early 20s that my father, I knew a very teeny bit of this, but not much as a kid. My father had a couple of sisters, but one of his sisters passed away a couple years before I was born, and it turns out she was a vaudeville comedian star.
Wow.
Burlesque and vaudeville, and was represented by the second biggest talent agency in her time in the 40s and 50s, 1940s, 1950s, played and headlined nightclubs around the country, and there was talk of building a Broadway show around her. She was this big, hefty comedian, and her stage name was Tiny Sinclair.
I think I've heard of her.
She came out of that whole vaudeville burlesque era, and she was on early television shows.
Yeah.
She was on the Robert Q. Lewis show. She was on the Arthur Murray Dance show. It's too bad she died literally in the mid-50s, just as TV was exploding, just starting and about to explode. So she probably would have become really famous had it not been. But she was pretty well known in her time. She was friends with like Johnny Rivers and all these people that played the clubs. And she, headlined the Copa in Montreal and all these places. So I discovered all this stuff, when I was in my 20s. And it was like, oh, shoot. No wonder I turned down that job with Procter & Gamble out of college to go to find my way to California. Because, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and to find my way to California where I knew nobody to try and get in the entertainment business. I guess it was in the genes, huh?
Yeah.
Funny.
That is crazy, yeah. So right after right after college, did you go straight to Hollywood?
No, I had a really crazy. So I was an undergraduate at Harvard, okay, and my parents. Neither one of my parents went to college. Actually, my dad didn't even graduate from high school. So after college, I had a crazy. I probably had the craziest post 1 year Harvard resume of anyone in the university. I had a job offer from Procter & Gamble in sales management. Procter & Gamble was like the Google or the YouTube or whatever it does today. Procter & Gamble and IBM were the big companies that if you wanted to get a sales or marketing job out of college, that was the best place to go.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people that did that then went on to business school, whether it was Wharton or Stanford or Columbia or Harvard. And so that was a great training thing. And I was, again, I'm not to sound like a jerk here, but I was a sales-oriented kind of guy back then, and didn't really know about this well of creativity that existed inside me. So I was the only senior in my class at Harvard that got offered a job at Procter & Gamble. They interviewed 160 seniors for one position, and I had 7 interviews to get the job, and I got it. And I thought I was going to go work for Procter & Gamble in Boston after my senior year, and then there was something gnawing inside me that I wasn't quite aware of yet. about myself. I didn't do theater in college or high school. I didn't write for the yearbook or the school paper. I didn't paint. I didn't, play a musical instrument, but I loved music. I loved rock music. Just super fan. And, to this day, I've seen Bruce Springsteen like 25 times,
Oh.
But the point is that I just had, so I loved all pop culture stuff, you know what I mean? TV, movies, music.
Yeah.
But I had no idea awareness that you could do that. You could be that, And as I hit my early 20s and got out of college, I said, the last minute I said, I don't want to work for Procter & Gamble. I think I'm going to form a concert production company. Go figure that leap, right?
Yeah.
But long story short, I formed a concert production company with two, and I didn't come from a money family, but you go to a place like Harvard, you get to meet a lot of kids that do come from money families,
Right.
And my best friend was the grandson of the founder of TJ Maxx, believe it or not, and we ended up forming a little company together. I think my mom gave me $2,000 as a graduation present. I put it into the company, and then we ended up producing. Of course, Led Zeppelin and David Bowie is what we should have done, but we didn't have the money to do that. So we produced a couple of jazz concerts, actually. Mm-hmm. And we produced a Dave Brubeck, Chet Baker concert in Englewood, New Jersey, across from Manhattan, an upscale sort of suburb of New York City. And then we did one at Brandeis University. I did that for the first 4 or 5 months out of school. And I ran the company. I bartended at night in New York City in the Rainbow Room in Manhattan. And I ran the company during the day out of my mom's apartment in Brooklyn. And that's what I did for 4 or 5 months. And ultimately, we didn't make any money. It was a fabulous experience. We had ads on like the biggest jazz radio station in Manhattan and the Village Voice. And I did everything from selling tickets to, it was just a wild and crazy experience. When that, we were going to roll, we were hoping to make money off and then roll the profits into more concerts. And we actually booked Stanley Turnkine and Sonny Rollins, Sonny Rollins was a famous jazz saxophone player, as was Turnkine. And we booked them on a double bill, but then it turned out we just didn't make enough money to continue the operation. So from that experience, I said, you know what, I think I'm going to go to Los Angeles. Sorry, let me back up. I ended up working as a reporter for the National Enquirer. So as I said, I had the craziest first-year resume out of Harvard. Jazz concerts. Then I spent the next 4 months living in South Palm Beach, Florida, working as a reporter for the National Enquirer. And I don't even want to bore you and tell you how I ended up getting that job, but it was crazy. And I spent, Enquirer had like a tryout training program, believe it or not, and they were headquartered in South Florida, in a place called Lantana at the time, Lantana, Florida, and they doing this 4-month tryout training thing, which they hired me. They put me up in a motel on the beach from December to April in Florida. It was beautiful months. Paid my meals. This was like 1979, 1980. They paid me like $500 a week, which was a lot of money back then. And paid my meals, did my dry cleaning, and they sent me to do celebrity stories. I chased a guy named Dirk Benedict, who was the star of Battlestar Galactica, around Los Angeles. I went to Memphis, Tennessee, to do a story on Sybil Shepherd, who was having an affair with I forget was it Peter Bogdanovich? I can't even remember.
Yeah.
Something like that. I can't remember. But the point is, I did a bunch of celebrity stories, and I also did stories about UFO fleets blitzing Earth. But that was a whole other specialty of the National Enquirer. They did celebrity stuff. And they did like space alien stories. So just crazy. And they had actually, it was kind of a cool experience because they sent me out to L.A. a couple of times, so for a week at a time. And I just got to, L.A. was a bit different than it is now. It's so much more crowded. But the point is I just said, I think I want to go into the film business. So I had 4 or 5 stories published when I was working for the Enquirer. I was 22 years old. I was working with all these British guys that they had hired from London, from the Fleet Street type newspapers, a lot of gossipy kind of newspapers, celebrity rags, in London and England. And so I was working with those kind of guys, and they had recruited a lot of people. The Enquirer recruited people from Harvard, believe it or not. Harvard didn't let them on campus to interview anyone. They had to go sneak off campus somewhere in Cambridge, I remember. And they also had people from Stanford. So there were like an interesting mix of people there when I was there, people that wanted to be really successful. There's a documentary out now, I forget the name of it, about the Enquirer, A guy named Steve Chow was there, who ended up being Barry Diller's right-hand guy. He went to Harvard and Harvard Business School.
Right.
There was a guy named Shelley Ross was my boss. She was my editor. She went on to be a producer for that Good Morning America. A guy named Gary Taubes was a really good friend of mine. He went on to become a famous science writer. He went to Harvard. There were just Judith Reagan from Vassar was there. These were all people at 22, 24, 26 at the time.
Yeah.
It was a really interesting, crazy experience. And I was there for 4 months, and then I decided, I pocketed all this money I made, I don't know, 10, 12,000 in the 4 months I was there, which was a lot back in 1979, 1980. And I just said, I'm going to go out to L.A. I'm going to go out to L.A. because I did go on some stories that they sent me, and I just said, I really want to get into the entertainment business. Maybe I'll because of my sales orientation, maybe I'll become an agent or something, I thought that was a good place to start, learn the business. So I did go out to L.A. after my Inquirer experience, and you go to a place like Harvard, you think you can do anything in life, even if you don't come from a money, power background. You just think, I have a degree, I have a bachelor's degree from Harvard, I can do anything, right? Yeah. Well, quickly you learn that that's not necessarily true. But I did, after 6 weeks of interviewing with lots of people, I wrote tons of letters. This was before the internet, right? So everything was more mysterious. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Things weren't as accessible. You just couldn't go on your computer and type, names and addresses of the talent agencies and who runs them, or the studios or the networks, and who are the executives that I could send letters to. Of course, they'd be emails, I guess, but in those days it was letters. So I wrote like 125 letters, people all throughout the business, and talking about just what I just told you. I hope this is not too much information, but in those letters I talked about my year out of college and my crazy experiences producing concerts and working as a celebrity reporter primarily for the National Enquirer. And 6 weeks later, I had a job offer from William Morris, starting the training program as a slave, basically, making like $160 a week, working in the mailroom. But I got my foot in the door, you know what I mean, for a young guy that knew nobody in the business and didn't have any, family connections or anything. And at that time, there weren't a lot of people from my college, from Harvard, that went into the movie business. It wasn't your typical, back in the late 70s, early 80s, it wasn't your typical career path. Yeah. Someone who had a Harvard degree. So there weren't a lot of people out here for it, but I did get to talk to a handful of people from Harvard that were in the film business, and they were very nice to me. And I got into William Morris. I spent 2 years as an agent trainee, working 11, 12 hours a day on the weekends, and I was an assistant to a guy named David Schiff for over a year. David Schiff's now a big manager. He manages like Jeff Bridges, and he managed Justin Timberlake and Eminem for a while. And so I was David's assistant for a year, and I was assistant to a guy named Jack Grossbart. Also, when I was there, he handled like Larry Hagman, who was on Dallas. Remember, he was JR on Dallas.
Yeah.
Robert Guillaume, who played Benson. Remember the show Benson? So I worked for Jack, who was a big TV talent agent. He represented guys like that, Shirley Jones, and just all those people. And so I spent 2 years and 2 months there, and I basically got the equivalent of a master's degree in show business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I literally got the equivalent of a master's degree in show business without the piece of paper. And the longer I was there, I basically started writing. Because I was a history major as an undergraduate in college. I wrote a ton of papers. I spent a lot of time in the library researching and writing papers for all my humanities courses. I wasn't a science or math guy. I was a humanities guy. So I just, and a big part of your job as a trainee, if you're in the TV side or the movie side, is to read scripts for your boss, who most of the time they don't read. They hand it to the 23-year-olds that are working and say, "Hey, I need you to read this tonight, and tell me what it's about, and give me your opinion, and give me a little synopsis of what it's about, and because maybe something came in for one of their clients or whatever, And so the point is that I would read a lot of screenplays, and I started to think, I could write as good as this,
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, all these ideas started welling up inside my head for TV movies, movies, TV shows, series ideas. I got so excited by it. And I just said, you know what, I don't think I want to be an agent anymore. And I left. After 2 years and 2 months and 2 hours and 2 minutes and 3 seconds, I said goodbye to William Morris, and I went out on my own. And while I was at William Morris, toward the latter part, I received a script from a young guy who had just graduated from Harvard, because I did this, I sort of signed up for the alumni career advisor role, which is a nice thing that they do there, which is that if you have an interest in like Wall Street or politics or showbiz, alumni that have offered to, sort of consult / talk and advise undergrads or grads that want to pursue a career in that field, will you can sign up to offer up advice and counsel, to younger people that are coming out of school that are interested in the career that you've already been in. And it's obviously a networking thing, and it's an advice thing. And so I did that. And I got a call from a young guy when I was 24 years old, 23, 24, who said, I wrote a script for a class I took as an undergraduate called He Sees You When You're Sleeping. This is in the grip of, Friday the 13th and Halloween and, My Bloody Valentine, and every holiday was exploited into a slasher movie, right? So I said, well, shit, man, send it to me. I said, I might be leaving here looking to produce if I can, make that move. I said, send me your script. So he sent it to me. His name was Paul Kamey. And, I'm not here to knock Paul Kamey. He was a very nice guy. I think he became a lawyer, an attorney. I knew his brother. His brother was also an undergrad at Harvard. So it's a little networking thing that, can really be helpful to you, especially if you can't write a check to make your movie. You got to network. Meet as many people as possible. That's what it's about,
Yeah.
So Paul sent me the script, and I thought it was, it was your typical then, teenage girl and friends being stalked by a Santa killer. You don't know who the killer is. The girl saves the town. It had absolutely nothing to do with the movie, what you see Silent Night, Deadly Night became. But I liked the one-sentence idea, because I had not seen, there had been a couple of Santa movies made prior to Silent Night, Deadly Night that were small, independent movies that never got much theatrical play or awareness in the society at large,
Mm-hmm.
And so I formed a partnership with a guy that I met through William Morris named Dennis Whitehead. His brother was an agent at ICM at the time, and Dennis and I partnered. Dennis thought there was real potential in a Psycho Santa slasher movie. As we both said, hey, who's more irreverent, than teenagers,
Yeah.
Teenagers will love that idea. I mean, think of the potential, and think of the color palette, blood on the snow, and the Christmas lights, and the Christmas music as a background for a scary slasher Santa horror film. And so we optioned Paul Kamey's script for 6 months. And then we basically we threw the entire thing out. There was nothing in his script that we used. No characters, there's no orphanage, there's no Billy like there is in the final Silent. There's nothing. There's no parents getting killed. There was just a teenage girl and friends, which obviously we didn't use any of it. But I didn't want to, I don't want to screw anybody over. God, that's the last thing I want to do. And if it wasn't for him sending me his script, He Sees You When You're Sleeping, I would have pursued the idea of a Killer Santa movie, obviously a completely different version. And in his deal, we agreed, he made money. He ended up making a bunch of thousands of dollars, and he got the deal was he'd get based on a story idea by, which is not what happened in the movie. And that's a whole other story you want to hear a little bit later. But so Paul Kamey was the guy that started it for me, and then I partnered with Dennis Whitehead, who ended up co-executive producing the film with me. And that's how it all began. And Dennis knew Michael Hickey. Michael Hickey ultimately got sole screenwriting credits. The final movie says based on a story by Paul Kamey, not based on a story idea by Paul Kamey, which is what we were going to give him, because that's all. I mean, we took a 3-word idea from him, a killer Santa. That's the only thing we took from Paul Kamey's screenplay, a killer Santa. Everything else was brand new, and Dennis and I raised some money, not a lot of money. I was like, well, I mean, maybe that time it was a lot of money, but it was $30,000 in the early 80s. It was 82 that we raised $30,000. And Dennis was friends with Michael Hickey. He was a young screenwriter represented by ICM, where Dennis's brother worked as an agent. And Dennis was friends with Michael Hickey. Michael Hickey had nothing produced, but he'd written a couple of spec screenplays. You know, he didn't get paid, and he wrote them on speculation, hoping to get paid. And I read one of his sort of thriller horror scripts. It wasn't a slasher script. It was a thriller horror script. I thought it was very well written. So based on that, prior to raising the $32,000, Dennis and I each put up $250, and we paid Michael $500 to write a treatment, a whole new treatment for a new screenplay. So again, we're going to throw Paul Kamey's script out other than the 3 words, a killer Santa. We then hired Michael for $500 out of our pocket to write a new version of an outline. He did a 30-page outline for a new version of a whole new approach to this idea of Santa Killer. And that became Sleigh Ride. SLAYRID, one word.
Yeah.
That became, right. So then, based on the $500 treatment he wrote, which turned out really well, and we worked with him. He wrote it all, by the way. We didn't write it, but we had a lot of input into the structure of some of the story stuff and ideas that went into it for scenes and things like that. But Michael wrote it. And off of that, we raised the 32 or whatever, thousand or whatever we raised from a couple of sources. And then we made a deal with Michael at ICM, his agent at ICM, and we made a deal for him to write a first draft and a couple of sets of revisions of what became Silent Night, Deadly Night. It was called Sleigh Ride, SLAYRID. That was the working title, which we all loved. And ultimately, when the movie got greenlit by TriStar, for some reason, they couldn't use the Sleigh Ride title. They do a title search and a legal search, and I don't remember the reason. We were disappointed. I guess Silent Night, Deadly Night turned out to be a pretty good title. I actually preferred Sleigh Ride, but hey, whatever. It turned out I had no control at that point anyway. But yeah,
I know there was a Christmas slasher movie in the public domain called Silent Night, Bloody Night in the early 70s.
And I still, to this day, have never seen it, though. I see it plays occasionally in some midnight showings around the country.
Oh, yeah.
Was it a Santa character?
I'm trying to remember. I know I've seen it at least once.
There was a Tales from the Crypt episode in the 70s, actually, with a psycho, nutty Santa in a house, trapped in it, something like that. Right. I never saw the Tales from the Crypt episode either. And then there was Christmas Evil, which predated Silent Night, Deadly Night, I believe, by a couple of years. But no one saw much of that stuff. Those were like little independent, so ultimately when TriStar made Silent Night, Deadly Night, it had the backing of a major studio, so that's a whole new ballgame,
Mm-hmm. And there was Black Christmas and To All a Good Night, all these Christmas-themed ones. Yeah.
All independent films, though, little independent films. None of those films got theatrical distribution through a major studio with a big marketing campaign behind them. Silent Night, Deadly Night did. And, of course, the poster is so fabulous. It's a blow-away poster.
Yeah.
That Bert Klieger designed and did. And it just, riveted your attention when you saw it. At least it did to me,
Oh, yeah. It's iconic, I think.
Yeah. Agree.
Was it a hard sell to TriStar overall?
So this is, again, this is the interesting part of the story, or for me, the sad part of the story. So we finished developed the script. We did a number of drafts. Michael did the drafts, and we worked with them and oversaw them. And then we tried to set it up. And what we did was because, like I said, Dennis's brother was an agent at ICM. We tried to key into a couple of their young director clients, looking for like a young John Carpenter, you know what I mean? Someone that had great visual style that was just coming out of like USC Film School or UCLA Film School or NYU or one of these places, And we looked at a lot of student films, and there was a couple of students that they weren't students, they already graduated a year or two. So believe it or not, Albert Magnoli, who went on to direct Purple Rain the next year or two, or whatever it was, loved the script for Sleigh Ride.
Wow.
He wanted to direct it. We met with him a couple of times. He wanted to direct it. Ken Kwapis, who went on to direct
Vibes.
Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, Robert Redford and Nick Nolte, A Walk in the Woods. He directed multiple episodes of The Office and like really good shows. He wanted to direct it. And also Stuart Margolin, the actor from the Rockford Files.
Yeah.
He played Angel. Remember he played his little sidekick, Angel?
Yep.
Stuart was directing, and he had just directed an HBO movie called Glitter Dome.
I love that,
A Joseph Wambaugh novel, and Stuart wanted to direct Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Wow.
we had all these people, and Dennis also simultaneously had given the script. I mean, Dennis played a big role in this. Dennis played a really big role. It was great. Without Dennis, it never would have happened. And Dennis gave the script to a guy named Ira Barmack, who had been an agent at ICM with his brother, but then became a producer. And he had a deal at TriStar. This is how it happened, ultimately. Dennis gave the script to Ira Barmack, who he knew peripherally, not really well, but he knew him. And Ira Barmack had a deal at TriStar. He'd been an agent at ICM and a TV executive, I think, and then he became a producer. And he had a deal at TriStar to make some low budget movies in their initial year of formation. And TriStar was formed by CBS, Columbia, and Coca-Cola, by the way. HBO, CBS, I think, and Coca-Cola. It was like a whole bunch of different people came together to form TriStar.
Yeah.
And so Barmack read Sleigh Ride, Ira Barmack, who ultimately ended up being the producer on the film, and Dennis and I got bumped to executive producer. Barmack read the script and loved it. And TriStar was looking for its own slasher franchise at the time. All the studios, they had Paramount had Friday the 13th, Universal had Halloween, and TriStar said, oh, okay, we'll do Silent Night, we'll do Sleigh Ride, which they changed the title to, and we'll have our franchise, our slasher franchise. So Barmack also had given them another script that he was trying to get made called, it was a Danny Kaye comedy, can you believe it? He submitted Silent Night, Deadly Night, and a Danny Kaye comedy, and TriStar picked Silent Night, Deadly Night. He said, here's my two projects I'd like to make, either the Danny Kaye comedy or Silent Night, Deadly Night. And they picked Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Oh, man.
And so the next thing you know, we're negotiating a deal with his company, Ira Barmack's company. And we had a good young lawyer at the time, a show business lawyer. And it's a typical story. I mean, first timers, even, you get screwed kind of very often in the sense that people that get executive producer credit very often are just money people or someone that owned the rights to a book and if someone wanted to make the book and so they get an executive producer credit.
Right.
In this case, we developed the script from inception.
Yeah.
Dennis and I were the guys and we pretty much got completely frozen out of the entire thing from this point. So we made a deal with Barmack for executive. I was like 26 years old. I was working as a bartender at a Chinese restaurant at night and writing during the day. Dennis was working at Bullock's department store in L.A. Dennis had been a development guy for a producer, reading scripts, working with a couple of different production companies. But then we decided to try and get Silent Night, Deadly Night made, and he took a job as working at a department store, and I was working as a bartender at night. And I was, writing scripts with a different partner during the day because Dennis is not a writer. So that's what happened, and we started negotiating the deal, and and then all of a sudden, Mr. Barmack became a complete asshole. He went from Mr. Charming in the beginning when he met us, and I love this. I want you guys to come on location, and I want to teach you how to produce. We were kids, we're 26 years old.
Yeah.
I was 24 when I developed the script. What did I know? This was my chance to get a movie made. It was an incredible opportunity, instead of making Mai Tais in the back of the Chinese restaurant. So we had a good young lawyer at a major Hollywood entertainment firm, but Barmack and his attorneys just were assholes. We wanted sequel involvement, remake involvement. No, you can't have any of that. You can have net points. sequels and remakes. So and no fees. Like we got no fees for 2 through 4, or the quote unquote Anchor Bay remake in 2012, which wasn't a remake at all.
Yeah.
So we got an executive producer fee, which you could imagine couldn't have been that much on $1,065,000 film. Okay, and we have net points, and to this day we never saw a dime of our net points. It was ridiculous, and all that bullshit from Ira Barmack that we were going to go to location and we were going to be a part of the production. He completely froze us out of everything. So the movie then got made with Barmack at the helm. Dennis and I were completely frozen out of everything by him. And we never stepped on the set. Well, there was no set. I mean, well, of course there was a set, but it was made all on location. It wasn't shot on a sound stage. It was all made on location in Utah in March of 1984 with the snow melting. So they had to rush into production. The snow was melting in Utah, in Heber, Utah, outside of Salt Lake, I believe. And we never went to Utah. Not only that, so we had no say in who the director was, any say in the casting. It was like being a parent or a mother, and carrying your baby for eight months and 3 weeks and 6 days, and then they rip the baby from your womb and give it plastic surgery before you even have a chance to do anything. Okay, just rip the baby. So the baby got ripped away from us, basically. And Ira hired Charles Sellier to direct the movie, who basically never directed a movie before. But he knew him. He knew him just through his prior showbiz interactions. He knew Sellier, who was a producer, Utah-based. And Utah was a right-to-work state. It may still be, I have no idea. So meaning that there were no unions, so you could shoot everything cheaper. Mm-hmm. You have to pay union fees and scale wages and all that stuff. And so he went to Utah. He partnered with Charles Sellier. He was the producer on Grizzly Adams, the TV series, the family, the life and times of Grizzly Adams is like a TV series. And Sellier was a Mormon, believe it or not. And he also produced like these documentaries called like In Search of Noah's Ark and these pseudo-religious things. And that's who he partnered with to make the movie. I was in a state of shock when I found out. I mean, I could not believe that we're talking to, Albert Magnoli and Ken Kwapis and Stuart Margot, and this is who he hires to direct the film. So it got taken away from us. And on top of that, to add insult to injury, I kind of laugh about it all now, but to add insult to injury, there was a TriStar screening of the film. Mm-hmm. Dennis and I did not get invited, if you can believe that. Wow. We were not even invited to the studio's official screening of the film prior to its opening. Oh, and we were the guys. Yeah. That script was shot 98% the way we delivered it to Ira Barmack, who then delivered it to TriStar and Charles Sellier. They shot it 98% the way it was developed by Dennis and I and Michael. There were some really minor things that were changed. They weren't no character changes, nothing, no plot changes, nothing. It was just like they trimmed a scene here or they didn't shoot a little half a page here. That was it. Other than that, what you see on the screen is what Dennis and I developed from inception with Michael Hickey. And it was a depressing experience. But for me, the thing about it was I had formed a writing partnership with somebody else who I met in the training program, Willie Morris. So I ended up co-writing a produced episode of Rugrats, a produced episode of Friday the 13th, the series. I wrote a produced episode of Hardcastle and McCormick, which was an hour show on ABC. Right. And then I wrote a movie that got taken away from me and completely destroyed called Phantom of the Ball in the late 80s with Pauly Shore and Morgan Fairchild and Rob Estes from Silk Stockings and Melrose Place. And that was just completely destroyed. I mean, oh, God. And I had a lot of deals, after that. But, on other projects, I was partnered with Gail Ann Hurd and the late Stan Winston on another horror project called Legacy. And I was partnered with Chuck Gordon and John Turtletaub, the director, on a comedy. And I had a TV movie at CBS called Super Bowl Saturday that was greenlit by the president of CBS that Burt Reynolds wanted to do. I can go on and on. I don't want to bore you or your listeners. But, just so many other things happened that ended up not happening. And by the way, in my opinion, scripts that were significantly better than Silent Night, Deadly Night. Yeah. this is just showbiz, man. It's just really hard, to get movies made. So I was crazy. It was crazy. The first script I ever developed, Silent Night, Deadly Night, got made by TriStar. The first script I ever wrote, first feature script I ever wrote, Phantom of the Ball, got made for $2.2 million, 88 by Freeze Entertainment, and I thought I was going to be Steven Spielberg, Then I spent the next, 10 years banging my head against the castle walls with bigger projects, much bigger projects, and partnered with much bigger people than Ira Barmack. And way bigger than Chuck Freeze, and one after another could not get the projects made. So kind of crazy,
Yeah.
It's really, really crazy. And I was partnered with David Foster. I was getting ready in 2006 to go to South Africa on a project that Aaron Sims, I'm sure you know who Aaron Sims is. He wanted to do all the special effects, and ICM was representing the project, and we were going to shoot in South Africa for $14 million, and I wrote the script, and I was co-producer with David Foster produced Mask of Zorro, the John Carpenter's remake of The Thing.
Yeah.
He produced River Wild with Meryl Streep. I mean, he was a good friend. He's retired now, but we were 5 weeks into casting, and 40% of the money's off. And Zac Efron came in to read, and Emma Stone came in to read, and Kaylee Cuoco, and Amanda Seyfried, and Michael Seyfried. So this is the crazy Hollywood shit, And then I went, the late 90s, I went back to graduate school in my late 30s, AFI, to the MFA directing program. And I've directed 4 shorts, 7, 9, 11, and 14 minutes, and I've been attached to direct movies 6 times, and none of them have gotten made yet. But there's the Hope Springs Eternal, and one of my projects, Red Racer, has almost gotten made 3 times. It's called Red Racer, and about an evil bicycle from hell comes to take a tweener to hell for lying to his minister father and his nurse mom. And we were on the schedule for pre-production in 2002 with a company called Crusader Entertainment that made Ray with Jamie Foxx. He made Sahara with Matthew McConaughey, and I was the director, and I wrote the script, and we were going to make it for $8 million in 2002 when I got out of AFI in 98. And we were on the schedule for pre-production, and it got pulled the last minute for, I won't get into the reasons, but unbelievable reasons. And I've been attached to direct that 3 times, and I'm actually attached to direct it now as a smaller film for $2.5 million. And I'm partnered with a company in Henderson, Nevada, just outside of Vegas, called Global Genesis Group. So we'll see if it gets made. It's been, I tell you, man, it's just been it's not just Silent Night, Deadly Night for me,
Yeah.
In my case, when you go to IMDb or whatever, and you look and it says Silent Night, Deadly Night, Phantom of the Ball, and I made a small movie that I produced called Butterfly Dreaming. That was a festival-type movie. It was the opening night film at the Santa Monica Film Festival. It played at the Seattle International Film Festival. So when you see that, you see a few TV credits. That's just the tip of the iceberg. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The produced shit that I have, which is like I think 6 produced credits, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Most of my career's been part of the iceberg. It's been underwater. One big project after another, and so many close calls as a writer and a director and as a producer too, and other things. I mean, I'm partnered with Tobin Bell right now on a project that we can't get made. And Tobin, of course, plays Jigsaw with the Saw series. But Tobin and I worked in 2013 and 14 really close together on this project called Dark Corners. It's great. It is great. But you have to understand, when Blockbuster went out of business in 2011 and the DVD business went down the toilet, it's changed the whole. There were so many smaller movies getting made in the $1 to $5 million range, but not so much anymore.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get those movies made. And, and I've had so many crazy close calls, so. But I'll stop chatting. You can tell me if you have some questions.
Yeah.
Happy to answer. If there's anything left.
Oh, yeah. Do you have a favorite kill in Silent Night, Deadly Night?
I have a favorite non-kill. I tell you what my favorite non-kill is.
Sure.
My favorite scene in the movie is when he gives Denise's sister the razor blade.
Oh, yeah.
And she says, "Have you been good all year, or have you been naughty?" "Good, Santa." He goes, "Are you sure?" And then I love that he gives her the bloody box cutter as a gift because she's been good, you know?
Yeah.
The kills, I don't know, my favorite part of Silent Night, Deadly Night are not so much the red meat which we threw to the horror audience, you know, the Christmas kills and the sledding beheading and and all that stuff, and the reindeer antler kills, and
Mm-hmm.
When you really think about Silent Night, Deadly Night, why is it so much different than the Joker, really?
Yeah.
About the Joker. The Joker's an origin story. It's not a comic book movie. It's about a human being who's badly damaged.
Right.
And they take you through it step by step by step, and it's great. I love the Joker. It's probably my favorite movie, but I've still got a bunch of things I haven't seen yet, but I loved it. And I'm thinking Silent Night, Deadly Night, it's very similar. Of course, the Joker's probably $150 million. I don't know how much they made it for. Silent Night was $1 million. But, we tried to do something a little bit different,
Mm-hmm.
We tried to tell the story of how a young boy, and this is what Michael Hickey said to me. He said, he worked backwards. I got a guy in a Santa suit killing people on a rampage in the last third of the movie, right, with an axe, and going naughty, punish, right? How did that guy end up in that Santa suit? What happened to that guy? And that's how the story evolved. That's how the backstory of little Billy and his parents on the road in the opening, and then Grandpa, and then the off-kilter Mother Superior being, under her thumb as a young child, a boy who's like 8, 10, 11. You see step by step, all of these things, how they impacted him. And so that's how he ended up in a Santa suit with an axe going naughty and punish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in essence, the backstory became the story. The backstory of little Billy right from the beginning at 5 years old was so interesting to us that we thought, you know what, this is more interesting than just some guy in a Santa suit killing people for 90 minutes. Fuck that.
Yeah.
We've seen that before. You've seen that template again and again and again in slashers out of the 70s and into the 80s. You saw that template again and again and again. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to do something different, a little more interesting. And the rampage, there's the toy store rampage, and then there's the rampage out in the world,
Mm-hmm.
And, where he kills Denise and her boyfriend and the cop at the end, and he kills the kid on the sled. So in terms of my favorite Christmas, well, look, the sledding beheading is great. I love that, how the head rolls down and connects up with the body, which falls off the sled. And again, the reindeer antler scene's great. But again, my favorite scene is the scene where the little girl doesn't get killed. I love that. I love that he gives her the box cutter.
Yeah.
As a Christmas present, because she's been good. Because he wants to do her in. He goes, "Are you sure?"
Yeah.
So I hope that answers the question.
Oh yeah, it does. My personal favorite is Denise's, and Linnea's been on the podcast a couple of times. She told me how uncomfortable she was doing that scene. But she also told me she was in Mexico shooting another movie, and she got a call from her agent that there were angry mothers picketing the movie.
Oh, yeah. I got called to be on the Phil Donahue show. Phil Donahue was a big, famous talk show host back in the day, right? And he did a whole hour on Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Wow.
Did a whole hour. And I was on vacation in Boston, and I got a call from someone at the Phil Donahue show asking me if I'd be interested in attending the show, going on camera, because they were doing a whole segment. Phil was going to do a whole segment devoted to the film and the protest and the controversy. I just said to my girlfriend at the time, "Oh my God, there's this group of mothers in Milwaukee called like Mothers Against Movie Madness or Citizens Against Movie Madness." I said, "I don't want to go. They're gonna roast me." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In retrospect, I wish I had done it. It probably would. I could have had fun with it.
Yeah.
And because I was not. Once Barmack froze my partner, I had a movie. I hadn't even talked to him. I never saw him again, actually, in my life. He's passed away in 1993, and I never saw him again. And he actually went on the show.
Yeah.
And did the Donahue episode, but I didn't go. But yeah, I know, it's crazy. The Mothers Against Movie Madness, because they were tired of it. There have been so many slasher movies that had come along, you know, for teenagers, and like this was the straw that broke the camel's back, pretty much, you know.
Yeah. Wow. That's unfortunate. Yeah. There's so many.
Well, you know what's unfortunate? Here's what's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Picture cost $1,065,000. It was on its way to grossing $20 million in the United States, just alone in the U.S. and Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I mean, it was going to be a huge hit. How many movies returned 20 times their production costs? You know what I mean?
Not many.
Not many, right. It was going to return 20 times its production costs. And and also, you know, the video market was gigantic in those days. So the picture, you know, obviously that's when Silent Night, Deadly Night was really, truly discovered, when it went into the video stores, you know, a year or two later, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, it was on its way to grossing a real hefty $20 million in the U.S. and Canada just alone. That doesn't even include the rest of the world, Europe and Asia and, you know, and all that stuff. So, but.
Yeah. I'm actually having the guy who Mother Superior catches fucking that girl in the movie, Paul Mulder. He's coming on later this week. I get to hear it from his.
He did the sex scene with the girl in the orphanage.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, that's a good scene. I like to see little Billy's looking through the peephole.
Yeah.
Interesting thing about Silent Night, Deadly Night for me, and I've seen it like probably 30 times.
Yeah.
Is that it's for me? You got to understand, I developed the script, so I had ideas in my head what I thought it would look like, or who the actors would be, and stuff, and things like that. You know,
mm-hmm.
that it's sort of schizophrenic for me, because the script was pretty good for what it was. It wasn't Citizen Kane. It wasn't supposed to be Citizen Kane, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there are some really good performances in the film, and there are some just performances. But I'm not going to get into specifics, but the thing is that, you know, Stanley Stokes cast the movie in L.A. She cast the Terminator, you know? I don't know if you know that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I cast Silent Night, then I cast Terminator. And the secondary roles were cast out of Utah, the smaller roles. And there are some places where the acting is just not, it's not consistent. So Mother Superior is fantastic, you know?
Yeah.
And there are some secondary roles that just really fall down. You know, the same thing, you know, the cinematography was pretty good in places. There's some cool shots in places. And then there's really pedestrian setups in other places.
Yeah.
Listen to me talking. Of course, I went to film school, right? Directing.
Yeah.
But for me, there's some pedestrian directing all over the place. And then there's some really cool stuff. And there's some really riveting moments. I mean, the scene with Grandpa is fantastic, isn't it? And he was incredible, Will Hare.
Yeah.
The scene when Billy snaps in the toy store, when you know, when the girl, the sales girl, is getting kind of raped by the toy store stock guy manager, stock manager, and then Billy's watching and he's freaking out and he's remembering his mother's murder, and when the highway Santa, you know, rips her blouse, and he's like freaking out. It's the camera, the screen is flashing white, and you're intercutting, and the music is. I mean, it's really dramatic. You know, it's good. You know, but it's the stuff that's not good in places. You know, where it makes for, and that's what makes it that makes a fun midnight movie. You know, and that's why I think it's like I think it's like Rocky Horror for the holiday crowd. I think of Silent Night, Deadly Night, the original one, the first one, is Rocky Horror for the holiday crowd. Because Rocky Horror, there's some great stuff in Rocky Horror. There's great dance sequences. The music is fantastic. And by the way, the music in Silent Night, Deadly Night is fantastic. I mean, Perry Botkin, who did the score, is a brilliant composer. I mean, he won a Grammy. He was nominated for an Oscar. He'd never done a horror movie score before in his life. That was what's so great. And he's a good friend of mine. He's now 86 years old. We were just at a book signing at Dark Delicacies in Burbank 2 days ago because I made a deal for the 35th anniversary CD for the score. And the songs that Morgan Ames wrote are just such a great juxtaposition, you know? Mm-hmm. And the songs also embody a lot of the 80s kind of musical themes that were going on. If you have the whole CD of her 10 songs, and, you know, Santa's watching, Santa's waiting is like a 50s thing, you know, the do. It's really great. I mean, it's really great. And Henning Schellerup, who shot the movie, there are some really cool shots, like when the bloody axe, dripping blood goes down in the frame in front of the snowman.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a really great shot of when the cop gets the axe, Barnes gets the axe in the chest at the end, and the camera goes down the stairs as he falls. If you watch certain things, they're really, really well done. And then I'm not going to get into this other stuff that's really pedestrian. And my understanding is that Selye spent absolutely no time talking to the actors at all. None.
Really?
Yeah, because I talked to Robert Brian Wilson. Because he wasn't a director.
Yeah.
He was a freaking producer of, like I said earlier. He wasn't a director. And Robert Brian Wilson, who I think did a pretty good job, it was his first acting gig. He wasn't an actor, basically. He was having lunch with his wife at a restaurant in L.A. somewhere, and this manager guy came up to him and said, are you an actor? And he said, no, not really. He said, you ever thought of it? He said, well, no, not really. And so Selye got him out on the interview for Silent Night, Deadly Night, and he got it,
Yeah.
So, he got it. So, and Mother Superior, Lillian Chauvin, was an acting coach in real life in L.A. Besides being an actress herself, she also taught acting. Robert Brian Wilson paid Lillian Chauvin on the set during the shoot to give him acting lessons.
Wow.
I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I talked to Robert about it. So he actually paid her out of his per diem or whatever to work with him in between scenes and I guess after the day of shooting and stuff. Crazy, huh?
It is crazy. Yeah.
It's crazy.
I heard Gilmer McCormick. She's a playwright now. I tried to get in touch with her through the theater company that she works with in Utah and stuff, but I never heard back.
Well, I don't know. Gilmer McCormick was living in Kentucky when I last talked to her.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't know.
Was the play? I think Mrs. Randall the playwright, or Barnes, the guy that played the cop. I'm not sure. The guy that played the cop at the end to get the axe in the chest. Max something, I forget his name, but yeah. But so anything else? I'm happy to continue if you want to hear more.
So what are you doing these days?
So, I mean, it gets tougher in Hollywood as you get older if you haven't had a huge career. I was a guy that verged on a big career again and again and again, as I said earlier. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to reboot Silent Night, Deadly Night right now.
Oh, nice.
So my partner Dennis and I are very close to making a deal. That's all I'll say. I can't say who it's with.
Mm-hmm.
The deal's not closed yet. We did meet with Jason Blum, by the way.
Wow.
We met with Jason Blum. We're meeting with different people, some real good people. I'm not sure who we're going to land with, but we're definitely going to reboot it. I don't know how much it's going to be for. It depends which company we go with.
Yeah.
Of course, Black Christmas just bombed.
Oh, I heard that, yesterday.
I mean, it's DOA, man. The movie is just DOA. So, I don't know that we're going to do it with Blumhouse, but there are other people we're talking to as well. So, we're going to reboot. If it's up to me, we're rebooting it for 2021 probably, I think. And whether we do a remake, whether we do a sequel, I don't know the answer yet. We have to develop a script yet. We haven't done that, so that's going to take 6 months, I'm sure, at least.
Wow.
So, but the deal's not closed yet, so I can't say anything.
Well, I hope it gets made. That'd be exciting.
Yeah. And I'm attached to direct Red Racer, the project I told you about earlier.
Yeah.
I'm attached to direct, and we hope to make it for $3 million.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I was going to make it No. 2 for $8 million. So, but it's just hard. It's hard to get smaller movies made now. There's not a lot of indie companies doing that. I mean, could you imagine? I've been partnered with Tobin Bell on a $3-4 million horror movie since 2013, and we can't get it made.
Oh my God! Yeah.
Yeah, and that's Tobin fucking Bell. People don't care. It's just it's just the studios and other than Blumhouse, who's making movies like that? Nobody really.
Yeah.
There are very few people. There might be people making micro-budget movies for $200,000,
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's not going to do a movie for $200,000,
Yeah, people.
That'd be his salary.
Yeah.
You know. So yeah. So I'm attached to Direct Red Racer, which I wrote and which I did as an 11-minute short when I was at the American Film Institute in the directing program.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I've been attached to direct it like 4 times since '98. It's ridiculous. Most commercial idea on the planet, you know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a Christine meets Ghost Rider meets a Goosebumps, you know. Except it's not. It's edgier than Goosebumps. Goosebumps can be a little silly for the younger kids, you know.
Yeah.
This is still a movie that's aimed for tweeners, but it's a little edgier than a Goosebumps.
Oh.
You know.
Yeah.
Probably PG-13. You know. Definitely not R, but so that's what I'm working on. I'm about to start another horror script in January that I've done a lot of research and work on. Because I've written 12 features. This is my 13th script. Maybe this will be the lucky one, huh?
Yeah.
For 13. So my 13th feature script as a writer and/or co-writer, and I've developed about 10 features as a producer over the years. So I've done a lot of work, you know, that people aren't aware of. I think, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my most fun collaborations was with Stan Winston, you know, the late Stan Winston, you know.
Yeah.
Stan was attached to direct a script of mine in 1993 called Legacy, which was greenlit by Dimension Films. He had just done Pumpkinhead, and it was greenlit by Dimension. And he said, you know, Scott, I really don't want to do a movie. I just did Pumpkinhead for $3 million. I really don't want to make another $3 million movie, so I'm giving it to a producer friend of mine. Let's see what she says. Well, he calls me like 6 weeks later and said, my producer friend loved Legacy. She wants to meet with us. And it was Gail Ann Hurd. So I met with Gail Ann Hurd. We had 3 2-hour meetings. We did rewriting for them, and we thought we had the movie set for like, I don't know, 10, 12 million, 14 million. And then 6 weeks later, everybody had passed. So this is a lesson for your listeners. This was 1994. 93, 94. Stan Winston had just done all the special effects for the first Jurassic Park, right?
Yeah.
Gail had produced Terminator and The Abyss, and, you know, and I said to my mother, who was still alive back then, I said, Mom, I've got these huge people attached to my project. I can't believe it. I'm so excited. 6 weeks later, everybody had passed.
Oh.
This is with Gail Ann Hurd and Stan Winston at the height of who they were.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody passed. And I said, how am I ever going to get a movie made if I can't get a horror movie made with these guys?
Yeah.
If these guys can't get my horror script made, how am I going to get a horror movie made after again? And what I found out is that Stan, after he did Pumpkinhead, he did another film called Upworld, a.k.a. A Gnome Named Norm, for Vestron. Vestron was one of the big independent companies back in the day when there were a lot more companies making movies because of the video boom, the video cassette boom, and the VCR boom, and all the video stores, and, you know. And A Gnome Named Norm was $7 million. It did not get a theatrical release. I knew he had made the movie, and I didn't know what was going on with it.
Mm-hmm.
And there were parts of Pumpkinhead that I really liked. You know, parts of it I didn't, but that's okay. He didn't write the script, Stan. He just directed it and did all the effects, the monster.
Yeah.
And, so crazy, huh? You know, it's just, and that project, Legacy, has almost gotten made. Chuck Russell wanted to direct it 3 years ago. You know, he directed The Mask.
Yep.
Dan Winston's been attached to direct it. I mean, it's just nutty, you know. And I was partnered with David Foster on it. So these projects, you know, it's just been my life. One project I've known. So I hope. But, you know, I don't jump up and down anymore. But I hope to direct Red Racer in 2020, I hope. And I'm starting a new script in January that I've done a lot of research and a lot of research on, and it's a great, like, $5 million horror film. It'd be a great Blumhouse project, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really excited about it. It's called Diabolators.
Mm-hmm. Diabolators.
So, you've heard the word diabolic. Someone's diabolical. There's a film called Diabolators. Yeah, I won't get into it now. But the point is that I'm excited about doing that. And hey, I just take it one step at a time. I'm lucky. I'm married to a lawyer. My wife is not an entertainment lawyer, though. She works in insurance coverage. But you know, she has a steady gig, and she's been great. She's seen how real hate to use the term, the overused term, my journey.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, she's been with me since 1993, you know, and she's seen how real everything has been. You know, it's not been a fantasy. It's all been real. And she's allowed me to play in the sandbox, you know, while I've made money on and off the whole 30 years, you know?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
You're blessed, and I hope those movies get made. And
thank you, man. Thank you.
I thank you so much for coming on today. I hope you have also a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Yeah, you too, man. It's been a pleasure chatting, Tommy, and I maybe we'll see each other at the Silent Night 2021 premiere, huh?
Oh, I hope so.
That'd be cool. Wouldn't that be cool?
I hope so. Yeah, it would be really, really cool.
Okay, well, happy holidays to you and your family, and thank you so much for having me on the show.
My pleasure, sir. Thank you so much.
You take care, buddy. Bye-bye.
Yeah, have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Well, there you have it. Scott Schneid. Ain't he a cool dude? Perseverance, just like everybody I've talked to. Perseverance is the key. I'm so glad I got to talk to Scott today because he's out there following his dream like we all are. And it's great that he made such a classic like Silent Night, Deadly Night. Sad that bad stuff happened for him during it, but he persevered, like I said. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, add me as a friend on Facebook, join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all the time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Later, dudes.